This is Olbermann versus Trump, and I'm not Trump. Georgia certified its presidential votes, and within hours, the voting systems manager for the state, a man named Gabriel Sterling, whose Twitter bio begins with the words conservative, cyclist, foodie, entrepreneur, reported, quote, "So this is fun. Multiple attempted hacks of my emails, police protection around my home, the threats." The conservative voting systems manager of Georgia disagreed with Donald Trump. So the conservative voting systems manager of Georgia immediately got death threats. Just as when Arizona Secretary of State Katie Hobbs disagreed with Donald Trump, Secretary of State Hobbs immediately got death threats. Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, a Republican, disagreed with Donald Trump. Secretary of State Raffensperger immediately got death threats. Health inspectors in Milwaukee attended a Donald Trump rally. The health inspectors immediately got death threats. Dr. Anthony Fauci disagreed with Donald Trump. Dr. Fauci immediately got death threats. A steelworkers union president disagreed with Donald Trump. The steelworkers union president immediately got death threats. The commencement speaker at Hampshire College disagreed with Donald Trump. The commencement speaker immediately got death threats, 50 of them. Heather Heyer disagreed with Donald Trump. Heather Heyer was murdered at Charlottesville. Heather Heyer's mother immediately got death threats. The reporter to whom she told about the death threats immediately got death threats. Joe Biden criticized Donald Trump and got a pipe bomb in the mail. Kamala Harris, same. Barack Obama, same. Hillary Clinton, same. George Soros, same. Eric Holder, same. Cory Booker, same. Maxine Waters, same. James Clapper, same. Tom Steyer, same. John Brennan, same. Robert De Niro, same. All from one guy. Not to be an alarmist, but perhaps a pattern is beginning to emerge. This is not to say that the death threat is exclusive to Trump and the other anti-democracy fascists. Conservatives get them too. The shootings at the 2017 congressional baseball game practice were by a liberal, intended against conservatives. It is tough to measure the volume of these things, but it is pretty clear that in terms of employing violence and threats of violence against critics of a president, the volume shoots off the charts when the criticized president is a Republican. And that volume has spiraled out of control when the criticized president is Trump. We hear these stories on a daily basis. And yet I wanted to underscore for a moment just what happens with a political death threat, just the disruption that unfolds each time. And this is when the threats are not considered serious or even credible or imminent. From August of 2016 through November of 2017, I did 2 series of videos like these for GQ magazine, 170 editions in all. They were all about Trump. They were all opposed to Trump. I retired from the series and from political commentary, mostly because I wanted to resume my sports career with ESPN. And I recognized, long before ESPN did, matter of fact, that working for them while at the same time commenting on politics had gone from something I had done without issue every day for 3 years ending in 2007 to an impossibility in just 1 decade's time later. On November 13th, 2018, roughly a year after the last of those GQ commentaries, I got a call from the FBI. They had completed their prosecution of the man who sent the 16 pipe bombs to those 12 people I mentioned, plus another one just addressed to CNN. His name was Cesar Sayoc, and he was colloquially known as the MAGA bomber. The FBI guys had called because they wanted me to know that while they perceived no threat to me from Sayoc or anybody else, they were combing through all the materials they had seized when they apprehended him, and in his computer there was a second list of names, and on it was me, a year after I had left political commentary. And it had taken the FBI a year to get this information to me. That's not criticism. It's an indication of just how many people Cesar Sayoc wanted to harm or threaten because they disagreed with Donald Trump. The practicalities of such a thing are extraordinary. In addition to my own security arrangements, I had to warn authorities at the places I lived, the places I got my mail, the places I worked for ESPN, and also my friends and relatives, all to be on the lookout for anything strange. The implication of a death threat was nothing new for me, and it did not cause me any particular personal anxiety. It just underscored again that it is almost a default position among the defenders of this creature Trump that their response should be to threaten you with violence or death. It is by definition terrorism. It is also by definition Trumpism. I had gotten it before on a perfectly beautiful Saturday afternoon some time back on a hill filled with dogs and dog lovers enjoying themselves one afternoon. Somebody new to the location recognized my voice. He asked me to identify myself and then spent several minutes insisting to me that I should kill myself. When he would not stop, and when my responses did not make him leave, I called the police and he ran away. On a night in 2006, I had opened what I thought was a package of baseball cards I'd ordered from California. Instead, coarse granules of something poured out, as did a note saying that I had poisoned the country against George W. Bush, and now, in turn, I was being poisoned with anthrax. It wasn't anthrax. You could see that. It looked like drain opener. Anthrax is so dangerous to handle that the expert who mailed it to several news organizations in 2001 is believed to have screwed it up and accidentally killed himself. Problem was, I lived in an apartment building then, and whereas I could simply and safely assume it was drain opener, and if I were somehow wrong, almost any antibiotic I could find, including the one that was still in my medicine cabinet, would save me. But if I were somehow wrong, what about the 4 or 5 people in the building who were more than 90 years old? What about the letter carrier who put that envelope in my mailbox? What about anybody else whose path merely crossed with that letter? And just as importantly, what about the mindless, murderous individual who sent that letter? So I called the FBI, and I must say, it was a treat to watch them operate. They arrived quickly. They set up a command station in an empty apartment on the floor of my building. They brought in Homeland Security. They brought in a hazmat team. And other than the fact that they had to burn my phone and my ID, they were reassuring and yet meticulously thorough. And then they said they were done, and now I should go to the hospital to be tested for anthrax just to be sure. And I said, it's 2 a.m. Why don't I go over in the morning? And they said, yeah, that'd be good. Again, what if we're all wrong? Just go over. Plus, if you won't, we can arrest you as a possible imminent risk to public health and force you to. They laughed, I laughed, they were serious, I knew they were serious. They also asked me one thing about the investigation, that I give them 24 hours. Don't go on MSNBC tomorrow night, they said, and report on this. Hold off, just for a day, so we can get a head start on catching this guy. Naturally, I agreed. And naturally, before I got to go on the air to tell the story, I was greeted by another story leaked to the New York Post, the Murdoch mouthpiece for Bush and the Republicans and conservatives and terrorism, about how I, quote, in a panic, couldn't tell the difference between anthrax and drain opener, and I insisted the FBI, blah, 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 blah. I received 2 more mailings with fake anthrax, and the last one was to the old MSNBC studios in New Jersey, and the operations manager of the facility actually did panic. And he literally put traffic cones around the door to my office, and I told him I had not opened the envelope, and anyway, my friends from the FBI were already on the way over, and so he went and got more traffic cones. I understood his anxiety and his panic. The last mailing was the undoing of this terrorist. By this point, the FBI guys would ask me if I'd noticed anything they hadn't, and this time I had something for them. Barcode on the envelope, I said. Ooh, said the agent. Sure enough, the barcode provided a complete history of who bought it, where, why, what else he bought there. It led the Bureau to his social media profile, where he was on the record as asserting that Laura Ingraham, Ann Coulter, and former Florida Secretary of State Katherine Harris were the most beautiful women in the history of the world. The barcode also showed the envelope had been bought at a post office in California, gave the street address. A week later, the lead FBI agent on my case called me. He's walking to the post office right now to mail you another letter. Can we have your authorization to open it? They'd found his address. He literally lived in his mother's basement, and they had videotaped him walking from it to send me more fake anthrax. He went to prison. I was not his only target. He'd also sent similar letters to Nancy Pelosi, to Chuck Schumer, to David Letterman, Sumner Redstone, and Jon Stewart, but not the comedian Jon Stewart. He'd gotten it wrong and sent this stuff to a different Jon Stewart. In that mistake by this guy is the essence of the terror of the death threat as a political tool, especially in the hands of conservatives and people like Trump. They sent it to me. This is to be discouraged, but it probably comes with the job. I get them today throwaway ones on social media, more serious ones by other means. People don't have to be crazy all the time to be crazy. Hell, I once had a guy call me up after a sportscast I did on KNX radio in Los Angeles in 1987, criticizing the effort of the LA Dodgers. And the guy told me he knew where the studios were, and he was going to come down there and wait for me to come out the front door, and then he was going to cut out my tongue. If you are going to get a death threat, it might as well be for something important, not about guys not running out ground balls. But it was the other Jon Stewart about whom I worried. What the hell did he have to do with any of this? What right did this mentally challenged guy in Woodland Hills, California have to involve other Jon Stewart in his psychotic vendettas against me and the others? Yet the right is claimed, as it is being claimed now. So when you hear the voting systems manager of the state of Georgia report death threats, or anybody else do so, think about what that means to him, to his family, to his friends, and to other people who just happen to have the same name. Dr. Anthony Fauci disagreed with Donald Trump. Dr. Fauci immediately got death threats. Arizona Secretary of State Katie Hobbs disagreed with Donald Trump. Secretary of State Hobbs immediately got death threats. Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger disagreed with Donald Trump. Secretary of State Raffensperger immediately got death threats. American Democracy disagreed with Donald Trump. American Democracy immediately got death threats.